Oh, well, hey there. So it is now Tuesday, January 28th, in the afternoon. A little late on the day. I didn't sleep very good, and so I'm up a little late. And I look really tired. I always look tired. Anywho, anyway, I've given some thought as to how I don't know, I just want to approach things in general. So I think I'm just going to do one 10-minute video a day and leave it at that. I don't anticipate me doing any live stuff. I generally hold to a rule of 2 hours of social media a day and all the various platforms, and then I found myself being too dragged into shit, and it's pretty toxic, and the world's just, yeah. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to do. 10-minute long videos and, yeah, reply back to comments and take it from there. So, on to that. It's kind of just my view that I think I'm just going to talk about whatever comes to mind on that day. It might be politics, probably will be, but also state of the world and just, I know, various other thoughts that may cross my mind that I want to talk about. So, with that being said, surprise, surprise, woke up this morning and Schittler did minimal amount of Schittler stuff, I guess. Yeah, he's cutting funding and a bunch of nonprofits and research and all of that stuff is being affected. And January 6th guy that was pardoned was shot by cops. So there's that. I plan on having a discussion in the future, not today because I have something else in mind, but in the future I plan on having a discussion about the state of just the state of things and my thoughts on to what, not Trump necessarily, but Project 2025 and just what I think some of their end goal may be through all of this. But that's a discussion for another day, if I choose to discuss it. I'm not sure yet. But today, I have a thought experiment. There's something that I thought about over the past couple of days, and I'm just kind of like, wonder what would happen if. So this is what I wonder. I wonder, I'm Canadian, of course, and we're in the midst of a little bit of political turmoil here, and we have Justin Trudeau, our Prime Minister, has stepped down from the role, but he is still in power. He is still the Prime Minister, and he still has the powers that that office affords him. Our Parliament is prorogued, which is a fancy way of saying that Parliament's suspended. And Trudeau did that, and everyone's up in the arms about the Conservatives in particular, about the legalities of it and how dare he, an affront to democracy. But, little do they remember that Stephen Harper, the last Conservative government, when he was in a minority, it did the exact same thing, right? I mean, it's a tool in the mechanisms of Westminster-style parliamentary democracy, which is what we have, and governments over the years have used it. Right? It's a shitty affront, but it's shitty for both parties, and both parties cry foul when the other party uses it. So I mean, it's stupid. But anyway, so we still have a prime minister, and we can still answer to Trump's tariffs and all this other stuff like that. But we are under a liberal leadership race, and whoever wins that race will take over leadership of the Liberal Party and will then become Prime Minister of Canada. So they'll be the leader of Canada, right? So that's when Trudeau will step down. So right now we still have a Prime Minister. So anyway, this is my thought experiment. So right now, Mark Carney is, he's got a lot of support from the Liberal caucus and, Canadians in general, more so than Chrystia Freeland. So I'm just working under the assumption of Mark Carney becoming the Liberal leader, but this thought experiment would work for whoever becomes a Liberal leader. But this is my thing. So, right, Pierre Poilievre for the past 2 years has all been about how shitty Justin Trudeau is and axe the tax. And, Carney and Freeland both have said that, yeah, tax is done. We're going to rejig it, redo it, but the consumer end of it is pretty much dead in the water. So carbon tax is done. So work under that premise, right? But it's not, because it's enshrined in law. So in order for that to be repealed, Parliament needs to be recalled and a vote needs to be held on it. Now, we are currently in a minority status, so the Liberal Party would need support from another party. Traditionally, it's been the NDP. They had an agreement and everything like that. So this is my thought experiment. So let's say Carney, he gets the leadership and he does a preemptive, runaround against the Trudeau government, because the Liberals know that there is hunger out there for the government to fall, and all three parties have stated that they are in support of bringing down the government. So what if the leader of the Liberals, Carney, does an endgame and does a preemptive strike and puts forth a law defeating, a bill to defeat the carbon tax, their own law, right? And because I do believe, on my understanding, that in order to repeal it, they would need to get the support from another party. I could be mistaken, but anyway, regardless, that's inconsequential. Just base the next election on the carbon tax, and then force the Conservatives and the NDP to either agree with the motion to repeal the tax or not. And then, making it in such a way that the government is listening to the people, quote unquote, because people say they hate it. Now, instituting the tax in the first place, that's a conversation for another day, but regardless, it's here, right? So if you force Conservatives and NDP and the Bloc to vote against a motion to bring out the carbon tax, then you force the Conservatives to vote no. And that pigeonholes them, because now the Liberals can say, okay, well, look at here. The Conservatives didn't support this motion to repeal the carbon tax, right? But if the Conservatives or the NDP or whatever, because under this assumption as well, too, the NDP may be willing to work with the Liberals to prop up the government until October, when the actual election is due, benefits Jagmeet Singh, because he becomes eligible and some of his MPs become eligible for pensions, right? So, it works to their favor. And then they could easily walk back anything to say, okay, well, we didn't support Justin Trudeau, but we'll still work with this Liberal team, right? So that really puts the Conservatives in a real tough spot, because, if this ends up being, and the government gets, support and they last until October, the longer that the government stands, the worse it becomes for Pierre Poilievre, because it doesn't give him the opportunity to spin the narrative anymore, particularly with Trump, which is the big monkey wrench X factor in all of this, right? This Saturday tariffs are due, whether it happens or not. I mean, I think they will, but whether it happens or not, if they come, it all depends on how the government responds, and then the new Liberal leader responds, right? And if, there's some level of strength being shown against Trump and everything, that will bode well for the party in power. And like I said yesterday, how many people have flocked to the Conservatives just because they didn't like Trudeau, right? I mean, there's a lot of dynamics happening right now, and Canadian politics usually isn't very exciting, and this race has got some excitement added to it, right? So anyway, that's my thought experiment. If the Liberals just, instead of being weak and timid, put the ball and played offense with it, and put the vote to the Conservatives, put them in an uncomfortable position, because for 2 years the Conservatives have put the Liberals in uncomfortable positions, right? So, when you do it that way, it forces people to, other parties to work with the government, and you know what? I think the Conservatives would still vote against it and run the election anyway on lumping Carney as carbon tax Carney and whatever. I think that they'd willing to take the chances, because, like I said, the longer that the government stands, the worse it becomes for Pierre Poilievre, and he does not want that. He wants an election. It's just like why Doug Ford is holding an election now, which I'm an Albertan. I'm not from Ontario, but that's another interesting thing as well, too. He's called election. And it's like, well, why do you call election? He has 18 months set. Okay, well, you know what? He doesn't want to face the electorate 18 months from now. If Canada's approach with tariffs doesn't work, or shit goes south or whatever, then the blame lays squarely at his feet. But if he calls an election now, wins another 4-year mandate, then, people forget quickly, right? And it's only political nerds and junkies like myself who remember shit, right? So he's basing stuff if things don't work out. Well, whatever. You know what? The people will forget about that by the time the next election is due, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of interesting shit going on right now. And just remember, fascism isn't about class. Oh, another quick thing as well, too, I want to talk about. I saw an interview, Bill Maher, with Jesse Eisenberg, and people are up in arms on another media app talking about how the rich, Jesse Eisenberg, is, these guys are talking about, working for the poor. Anyway, conversation for another day. I got lots of shit to talk about. You guys have yourself a good one. Bye.